Hello everyone and welcome to the first ever episode because I released a Warhammer video. What was it? Christmas Day. It was Christmas Day. I released a Warhammer video on Christmas Day of whether or not I could paint 109 Tyranids before Christmas 2024. If you want to go and check that video out, it'll be one of the more recent ones on the channel. You should definitely go and watch it. But today is the first ever episode because that video inspired me to play a lot more Kill Team and Warcry. So yeah, here's the first episode of, I think I'm going to call this Will It Slapchop. So yeah, I'm going to be trying to use the Slapchop painting method to see if I can get more stuff on the table in 2025 and actually try and enjoy painting a bit more. I've heard a lot of people have been using this method and I'm definitely not new to it, and the chances are there's probably a better painter out there for you guys to watch to kind of get this method down. Now I've already cheated, right? Let me get my pointing device of choice, which is a shade brush. I've already cheated because I haven't slap chopped this model, which is traditionally you would prime it black and then dry brush it light grey and then a white. Now I went to the expense of getting all of those things, but it turns out that these models are so spindly that even when I support them and dry brush them at the same time, they are going to break. So I've actually primed it black, primed it grey, and then primed it white using sort of a more gradual zenithal as I've moved up, and I hope you can still see that from the camera. Like you can see under here is still quite dark, this is all grey, and then right on the top here it's a bit of a brilliant white there, but you can recreate this with any of the Citadel spray cans or the Colour Forge or the Army Painter, whatever you're into. They're very basic colours, black, grey and white, so yeah, whatever works for you, as long as it's consistent across your warband, I presume you would get the same effect. Anyways, I've chosen this particular model to be our subject of this painting video, but I have the entire warband here and I will be painting the entire warband, but this has everything on it, all of the things that will be present on all the other models, for instance the wood, the metal, the brass, etc, etc. So I think one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, and I'm jumping into this very blind, but I'm going to grab some Nihilakh Oxide. I'm getting used to a new camera setup here actually, so I apologise if anything is out of frame or looks a bit rubbish. Again, this is the first one of these that I'm doing, so I really do hope that you find it useful. I'm actually going to switch down to a smaller brush here, and that is going to be a medium layer brush. We're not going to need the shade brush for a while, I don't think. I'm just going to grab some Nihilakh Oxide, and I'm just going to, not going to thin it down, but I am going to just thin it off of my brush so I can control how much I pick up. And there are two parts of the cloak of this miniature. There's like an undercloak, which is like the inside bit, and then there's like an outer cloak. So I'm definitely going to do the undercloak in this Nihilakh Oxide. And again, I can't really check the camera, so I'm really hoping that this is in frame, but there we are. And that already looks pretty good. So let's just continue that up there, trying our best not to get it on any areas that we don't want to be that colour. If you have a couple of minor spills, do you know what I'm going to say? That's probably fine. I'm just going to tilt the model towards me to get the underneath part there. And this is going to be quite tricky, is getting the inside of the cloak. Like so. Do you know what might help is if I loaded my brush up. And do you know what, I'm just going to do this at my own speed and we'll cut and come back and see what it looks like. And there we are, there's the first colour on, which is the inside cloak, that Nihilakh Oxide colour there. I did manage to get it inside, and I got a little bit on the dagger here, but that's okay because that dagger is going to be the recipient of a layer paint at a later stage, so that's okay. The important thing is I didn't get it on any of the outer cloak. So with that being said, we're ready to move on to paint number 2, which is going to be Pterodon Turquoise. So I've just given it a good shake off camera. I want to make sure that these contrast paints are mixed pretty well, because the pigment can and will over time settle right at the bottom. So you want to shake the living bejeebus out of them. And yeah, we're going to do the overcloak area now, so the second sort of cloak. And I've just noticed actually that this part here is part of the second cloak. So let's make sure that again we don't bleed onto any of the areas that we don't want to have that colour. So I'm just going to trace out, and it's a good practice, this contrast paint stuff, because you get to practice brush control, which is a very important painting skill. I understand that, even as somebody that really doesn't like miniature painting. But you just trace out the outline of the area that you're painting, and then brush control can go out the window and you can just smother it all on and cover the entire thing. Now I'm going to go and paint this entire outer cloak here. You guys can follow along and we'll come back and see what that looks like. And there is our Pterodon turquoise part done. Yeah, not overly enamoured with my own personal brush control after my little speech about it, but hey, we are getting there. I think what we're going to do now is we're going to do all the wooden areas, and for that I have got the paint here. That's the wrong paint. That's an oil. Wow, it'd be really cool if I was organised, wouldn't it? Contrast Wildwood, so let's jump that open. Now luckily my brush control's been all right around the wooden parts, so that's something, I suppose. Let's just make sure that's nice and thin on the brush, as in thin going onto the brush, not thinning the paint down at all. And yeah, I'm just going to touch in all of the areas on the model that are wooden, just doing my best to make sure that we have good brush control where it touches any other areas. So yeah, come back and we'll have a look what that looks like. There's all the wood done, which is our Wildwood contrast paint, and I think the next thing to do is to do the Hexwraith Flame. So this is a very simple green contrast paint that we are going to use to base colour all of the fiery parts. So let's just get some on our palette and crack on with that. Now we can see some bits down here, which is going to be nice and easy because it's nice and close to the base. And yeah, you can kind of see already that that Hexwraith Flame takes on a really nice, bright, magical colour that does kind of complement the overall scheme. So yeah, let's just base in all of those parts. We're going to do up here as well, and any parts that are coming off, we'll base those in Hexwraith Flame as well, and we'll come back and have a look at what he looks like. Well, there's the Hexwraith Flame on, and yeah, it's starting to actually look like a full model now. I think I've cocked up a little bit. I was originally going to do the skull and the face and everything in skeleton bone, but on reflection, I don't think that's the correct paint. I think I should have done it all in this Nihilakh Oxide, so I think I'm gonna do that now. So the arms and the face, let's just base them in Nihilakh Oxide and just see what that looks like. So yeah, let's get some on there, get some on there, and we'll come back and see what this chap looks like once he's fully painted up with that Nihilakh Oxide on the second go. Right, well, I just cracked out the Nihilakh Oxide again, as you know, and I've touched in the arms and the face, and it is starting to look like a full miniature. So I think the next thing to do is to crack out the lead belcher, which is, here we go, got a fresh pot here. I don't know about anyone else, but I feel like lead belcher is that one paint that if you don't close it properly, it will almost definitely destroy itself within 24 hours. So I'm constantly buying this stuff. If you've got any suggestions for alternative good dark silver paints down below, please do let me know. But I'm going to use the lead belcher to base coat everything that is going to be metallic. So even the stuff, well, why did I say even like that? Even the stuff that is going to be in our brassy colour, I am going to base coat in lead belcher. So I'm just going to be very careful when we get to any areas that have already been painted, and I'm just going to go and touch in all of these lead belcher areas, including these little straps here, which I'll just do with the edge of my brush, which is horrible to do around a camera. There we go. And yeah, we'll come back and see what he looks like. Right, that is everything that should be metallic coated in a nice thin layer of lead belcher, which means the next step for us is to grab our Runelord brass, and we're just going to touch in those tiny little brass, coppery details. Just get a little bit on the brush there, make sure we've got decent brush control. That's what we're practicing here. And I think all I'm going to do for this here is going to be like the skull icon on the sort of bit on the back there. I've just got a little bit of Rune Lord brass on there, and the what's it called, the crossguard on the dagger, and then maybe the handle. That's all we're going to do. So I'm just going to base those details in now, and we will come back and see what difference that has made. Right, well, there's the brass details in, and I think it does add a little bit of visual interest, so yeah, that's good. I think the next step, now that they're dry, is to grab some Agrax Earthshade. Oh my, is this a fresh pot? This is a fresh pot of Agrax Earthshade. It's not gloss, is it? Certainly hope it isn't gloss. Anyways, we're going to grab some Agrax Earthshade, rearrange my painting desk entirely, and we're just going to wash all the metallic areas. We're not going to bother washing the contrast areas because the whole contrast paint thing should have done its thing, and they will appear washed. They'll have that subtle gradient of colour and texture. So yeah, let's just base this all over all the areas that we painted just now in Leadbelcher and what was it, Rune Lord brass, wasn't it? Yes. So yeah, we'll do that, let it dry, come back, see how it looks. Right, that's the washes on and dry, and yeah, it looks good. I think it looks good. So I think the last step we've got left for this chap, and if you're following along at home, this is how I'm going to base them, is with some Stirland mud. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will have realised that I've swapped my medium layer brush for another medium layer brush, which is an old medium layer brush. You may use a new medium layer brush for this step, but it will become an old medium layer brush by the end of it. Anyways, Stirland mud is a fantastic texture paint because it is just a textured mud-like consistency, as the name would suggest. So yeah, it looks fantastic. I know you can get those little spatulas and tools and stuff to place this stuff on, but I like to just use a brush because you can just poke it exactly where you want it. And the benefits of using a moist brush is it doesn't stick to the brush particularly well, which is a pain getting it out of the pot, but an absolute godsend in moving it around. So we're just going to feather it up to the edges, making sure that it's not too thin in any one area. You want a couple of millimeters thickness on this stuff as you pop it on, but yeah, we'll get a decent coverage of this, like so. So it's just getting a bit thin around the back there, so we'll continue to place some more on. And it's okay to go over the side of the base just to get that really nice crisp line like I have just done there, because of the final step we're just going to use our thumb to just wipe it away. We can wipe it on some paper towel afterwards, so we can get a really nice crisp black base rim after the fact. So just go around, get your Stirland mud on there, we're going to let it dry, give it a dry brush, and we're going to put some Valhallan Blizzard texture on there and give it a snowy look and feel. Right, well, that is the basing texture on, so I hope that dries pretty quickly. It's dried pretty quickly so far. I just chucked it on top of a radiator. It's been about 20 minutes or so. While we're waiting for that to dry fully though, we're going to chuck on the first layer of Abaddon Black on the base rim, because that typically takes a couple of layers. I'll use my old medium layer brush for this, get a decent bit of black onto my palette, like so, and you know, just be careful not to get any on the base, and go around and just cover that base rim. And again, because you put it on quite wet and thinned down, it usually takes about 2 layers to fully cover this. So get your first one on, let it dry completely, come back, get your second one on, and you'll be golden. Well, the Stirland mud is now dry and the base rim is now fully black because it's had 2 or 3 thin coats, so that's good. The next step for us is to grab some Rakarth flesh. I'm just going to get, I'm actually going to swap to a, what is this? A dry brush small. Other dry brushes are available, but this is the one I've got and I'm going to use. And in typical dry brushing fashion, you can't see this, but just off camera, I've got some kitchen roll. I'm just going to get most of the paint off the brush there, working it into the bristles, and I'm just going to dry brush the base. There we are, just pulling that pigment across the raised surfaces, which hopefully you can see there. Bit heavy in some areas, but that's okay because we're going to put some Valhallan Blizzard on shortly, which will cover up a multitude of mistakes. But there you are, you can see, in fact, that step is completely done. I'm not even going to have to do a cut or an edit there, time lapse or what have you. That's all done. So yeah, we've just added a bit more visual interest on the base there. So we'll wait for that to dry and we'll come back. We're going to give the entire base a wash of Agrax Earthshade. Right, well, that dry brushing stage has dried, which is great. Doesn't take long with that. So we're going to grab our Agrax Earthshade once again and a moist brush, get a little bit on our palette, and we're just going to cover the entirety of the base in Agrax Earthshade. And I just said we got some on our palette and I'm taking it straight from the pot, but don't worry about that too much, that's fine. But yeah, just cover the entirety of the base in Agrax Earthshade and let that dry fully, and we'll come back and do the final step. Right, we now have a fully finished base there with the wash on, which really just does knock back that dry brushing, especially if you've done any heavy dry brushing in any areas, which I've kind of got on these blobs here. But that's cool because we can still hide some of those mistakes. We've got here the texture paint Valhallan Blizzard. I feel like some of the shots have been up here, but I just need to get used to having this overhead camera, which yeah, is definitely a thing. My Valhallan Blizzard has been in a drawer for about 12 months, so I'm just going to give it a really good shake off camera. I don't know if you can hear it, but it sounds disgusting, and that's great because that's exactly what we want. And I'm just going to again use my old medium layer brush and just grab some Valhallan Blizzard. I'm just going to put little puddles of snow knocking around, feathering it out towards the edge. Doesn't matter if there's a bit of dirt popping through underneath, that's actually good, like so. There we are. Join these up, make it thinner in areas and thicker in some areas. I've always been fascinated by the Nighthaunts because they've got this like magical glowing effect on all of their stuff. Like, it's very heavily contrast paint made. I mean, they were made as models that would be fantastic for contrast paints because they were released about the same time, didn't they? And then they always exude cold wherever they go, which is just makes them really, really cool. So yeah, look, there's our Valhallan Blizzard on the base there. What we're going to do is we're going to let that dry, give it a clear matte varnish, and then we'll have a look at the finished article. And after a quick matte varnish, that is what we're left with. And do you know what? I'm for the time that we've put into him, I'm quite happy with him. I can see him on a table in a warcry warband being used and enjoyed. So yeah, do you know what? I'll probably publish this one, which is that's a good sign. But yeah, look, thank you so much for watching. If you've got this far into the video, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, do all of that great stuff. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these in 2025, all things being well. So yeah, I hope you really enjoy this. I'm enjoying the process of painting once again. I enjoyed this miniature, which is my first. And yeah, if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. And yeah, popping up on your screen now will be some other videos. I hope you enjoy. Please do check them out, and I'll see you in the next episode.